All right, all right, all right. I haven't looked at this yet, um, but I've seen people excited for it, so I'm kind of hopeful. Kind of hopeful. Heard some good bolstering and sanguine removed. Okay, that's already a plus. New Zalatath fixes. Okay, let's see what those are. Let's take a little peek. Let's take a little peeky. Why not? Let's take a little peek. Um, Greetings, Dungeoneers. This week's beta update includes a major change to our fix Keystone Fix system in the War Within, based on player feedback. Yeah, get rid of bolstering. It sucks. Our primary goal with these updates is to refine the Mythic Plus experience to better serve a diverse player base. Previously, we approached Mythic Keystones with a one-size-fits-all approach, which proved challenging in striking the right balance and limiting our design space. Yeah, you can't look at something at like a people doing plus like just nines, right? People doing nines being like, oh yeah, these are the keys I'm doing for the rest of the season. And then someone doing 19s and 20s and going, you know what, these will work for these guys too. Because it just doesn't. Um, in this new build, you'll see a significant shift in our design philosophy. We recognize the importance of weekly variety of those progressing through the system. However, for players pushing high keys, this variance somehow felt restrictive. Yeah, it does, because sometimes because what they tried to do other things, like they tried like with Spiteful and a couple other fixes, they tried to like cap them, or they only did so much damage up to like a plus 10 level, and then they cap that way. It just didn't work. Bolstering got nerfed over and over and over again. And Sanguine also got nerfed multiple times. It just doesn't work. It just didn't work. They tried, you know. They tried and it didn't work. We also heard your feedback about wanting fixes with both positive and negative effects, as well as the desire for thematic nods similar to past fixes like Prideful. And I think when they say thematic, they're probably assuming people are talking about like Prideful and Thundering and things that are very like the season, right? Like Zalatath fixes will be very like the season. Um I think it's going to be good. But I'm curious on what they're going to be, because like Prideful was okay for high keys, bad. Thundering, nobody liked it. So hopefully, I mean, they're actually making a lot of changes and giving us a decent amount of time for feedback and listening to the feedback. So okay. The update to the affix system aims to meet those diverse expectations. We're maintaining the core goal of our last round of changes, but without the limitations of a one-size-fits-all approach. Good. This flexibility allows us to craft a more tailored experience for each of the different playstyles. Oh, dude, this sounds so good for high keys, man. Let's dive into the revamped affix system. Affix update overview. We're reducing the total number of mechanical affixes on a keystone for players progressing through the system from 2 to 1. The following affix have been retired: Sanguine, Bolstering, Raging, Bursting. Bursting wasn't as bad, but Raging, Bolstering, and Sanguine, all terrible, as well as something like Raging, hard restricting you to wanting an AoE soothe from like an Evoker, as an example. We've heard feedback that applying bonuses unevenly to players feels exclusionary regardless of overall impact. Affixes that were part of this last Mythic Keystone test are no longer applied to Keystones. Okay, so they got rid of the bonus Shadow, bonus Magic, bonus whatever, right? That's good. Okay, because like, what realistically this was going to do, I liked the idea of it, right? I liked what they were kind of going for. But what it actually ends up doing is it means 3 out of the 4 weeks you're doing way less damage and feel like shit. And you also feel like you're not going to get invited 3 out of the 4 weeks on top of that. So the idea of it was good, right? It's like, oh, we're going to give you guys a week where you can go in and blast and feel good, and you'll play the other weeks, and then other people can feel good. But then it just ends up being you feel good, but then you feel bad 3/4 of the time, right? And that's just not going to be, that just wasn't going to be good for longevity, right? It just wasn't going to work. We're reintroducing thematic elements to affixes by invoking Zalatath and Mythic Keystones with her own set of affixes. Tongue twister. We're utilizing passive effects to signpost expected increase in player mastery and commensurate rewards as players progress through the Mythic Keystone system. We're aiming to eliminate push keys by providing a constant challenge that focuses solely on the dungeon for players seeking to advance deeper in Mythic Keystone system for scoring and titles. Oh, thank God. Get rid of push weeks, man. Just play the video game. Just want to play the game. Keystone start at level 2. Zaltath will make herself manifest in dungeons, introducing a rotation of fixes under the banner of Zaltath's Bargain. These fixes not only seek to empower the dungeon's denizens, but also grant players the opportunity to harness their effects. Is this going to be like she's at the entrance and you have to pick your poison, kind of? In our first week, we'll have 2 Zaltath Bargain fixes available. One affix is an event that players must deal with periodically, kind of like Prideful, I guess, while the other affix is a passive effect on creatures throughout the dungeon. Ascendant. While in combat, Zaltath rains down orbs of cosmic energy that attempt to empower nearby enemies, increasing their haste and movement speed. If players disrupt these orbs, they claim the effect for themselves. Okay, so that means all players can get the bonus of these. I shouldn't have taken a bite of that. Now that I took a bite, I cannot continue because I'm eating. That was a mistake. Zaltath's Bargain Frenzy. The reason why I'm assuming it might be like a pick your poison affix is that it says bargain, right? So if you're bargaining, you're gonna have to, I would almost assume like you'd have to pick which one you want because you have to pick your poison, right? But so far they're just gonna be there, not your pick. Non-boss enemies become frenzied at 30% health remaining, increasing their haste by 40%, but increasing their damage taken by 20%. Now that is interesting. And what that also means is that you can save your stops and your slows and your all that kind of stuff for that 30% mark. It might reintroduce like kiting stuff again, but increasing damage taken is actually like very, very strong. Because some people don't really probably care that much about haste. Actually, they've been doing a better job about making, I think they made like monks actually care about haste, which is something they haven't cared about forever. Like Outlaw Rogue didn't care about haste. So maybe the haste one won't be too bad either. Starting at Keystone level 7, a new affix, Challenger's Peril, directly affects the dungeon timer. This affix emphasizes precise play and strategic execution, placing greater risk on the player's decisions. Dying subtracts 15 seconds from the time remaining rather than 5. Interesting. I'm cool with that. Yeah, I'm cool with that. You fuck up, it's worse. In hierarchies, you fuck up, it's worse. Yeah, I'm cool with that. Starting at Keystone level 12, a new affix replaces Zaltath's Bargain. At this level, Zaltath revokes her bargain, empowering dungeon creatures with a 20% increased health and damage. Oh. So, that's interesting. So there's going to be no affixes early in later keys. It's just the same for push keys. Interesting. That seems very good. And I saw some stuff about Fort and Tyran, but how Fort and Tyran works with these changes will be interesting. Okay. Fortified and Tyrannical now serve as milestone affixes that alternate between Keystone levels 4 and 10 on a weekly rotation. We feel this provides us with a clear point in the system where the increase in difficulty and rewards occur. This also affords more distinction between key levels for players progressing through the system and a constant week-to-week experience for players progressing deeper into the Mythic Keystone system. Here are examples of what Keystone will look like under the new models. Keystone have a +2 and a +11 have the following affixes. Zaltath's Bargain, Fortified or Tyrannical, rotating. Champion's Peril, +10, Tyrannical or Fortified is active, alternating weekly rotation from Keystone levels 12 and up. Keystones have the following. Fortified, Tyrannical, Challenger's Peril, Zaltath's Guile. Okay, so we get Fort and Tyran, but that's Fort and Tyran on top of a flat 20%. I mean, it's the same everywhere, but we're evaluating how dungeon scores are granted under this new model. We believe these changes, along with our heroic and myth dungeon affixes, provide players with a way to engage with dungeons in a setting they prefer. Special myth plus move forward if you. I mean, with this model, it just means hey, play every week. You don't need a fort week. You don't need a. You just play the game. I am concerned with another affix on top of Tyrannical that gives bonus damage to bosses because bosses have been a problem in terms of how much like unstoppable damage they do essentially. But I mean, at the same time, this also means that everybody is on the even playing field with that. So, they're going to have to look at dungeon bounds a little bit. I'm not worried about Fortified. I think Challenger's Peril is a good addition to the later keys because, like, hey, dying is bad. Because there's been keys where you just outgear the shit, and I've been in like plus 15s where people are just dying over and over and over again, but they're so overgeared right now that you just hold W through the rest of the key, and you still time it. So I think this is a way better impact on the timer. With proper play, also doesn't impact the timer. Zaltath's Guile. The main thing I'm concerned with is I feel like if they won both Fort and Tyran on these keys, it's mainly Tyr. It's the problem of that, like, you're buffing them by 20% on top of Fort, on top of Tyran, which, depending on the things you're fighting, another 20% is just insane, but I mean, it's all down to dungeon tuning. And if they're talking about the amount of, and if they're talking about a better system for people progressing and system for hierarchies, I'm assuming that means they're also hopefully going to be looking at tuning it a little better than they have previously. So yeah, no, this looks good, man. This is good. There was also another update to this story. Oh, I forgot. So the update to this story that popped up was that Fortified and Tyrannical are active on the same key at +10. That's what the change was, and that it's reflected here. But originally, I guess it didn't state that as cleanly enough. But no, this is a good start for sure. And honestly, at this point, it really just all comes down to the tuning of the dungeons, because this is literally plus damage, plus damage. Just plus health and dam, plus health and dam, plus health and dam. Don't fucking die. And that's going to be your high key experience, which I think is going to be for pushing. And especially if they have 4 anti-ran on keys, evaluating dungeon score, you don't have to do a fort week and a tyrannical week. I think that's way better. Um, I think it's just, if you just have one value, like I guess you could technically have 4 anti-tyrannical, but if you do a +10, you're just gonna get score for both. I don't know. Maybe they just need to make each affix have its own score, and then it's like, oh, well, you do the dungeon at this level, and then the affixes give this many extra points if you do it in time. Well, I don't know. That's for them to figure out. Score doesn't really matter. I mean, it matters for title, but like, score doesn't really matter. What matters is that it's going to be a very consistent experience across each of the weeks. And because the experience is consistent and they don't have to consider stuff like raging and bursting and fortified and bolstering on how much damage mobs are doing, hopefully they can tune them way better now that the mobs aren't going to be getting these potentially massive swings in damage. Like if you had bolstering in Ruby Life Pulls as an example, the big flame guy has so much health that even just cleaving off of him, sometimes you're just killing the side guys before. So if you do it wrong and you bolster the big guy and he does an inferno, you just die. You have no chance. You just die. So okay, it's basically no affixes. It's just plus health plus dam. It's very interesting. Very, very interesting. Okay. I like it though. This is a step in the right direction. I like it. I do like that they realized that these were not a good plus in the system. But no, I like it. I like it. I don't really have too much else to say on it, so I will end the video now. Haha. Bye-bye.